We turn now to developments out of the Middle East. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Tel Aviv this morning. He'll meet with Israeli officials on his first stop in the region amid efforts to revive those stalled ceasefire talks. Now, his arrival came hours after Hezbollah fired a barrage of rockets into northern and southern Israel. There are currently no reports of casualties. And overnight, Israeli forces carried out more airstrikes across Lebanon, saying it targeted Hezbollah sites and facilities. For more on all of this, let's bring in CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, great to see you with us this morning. Secretary Blinken's making yet another trip here to the Middle East, but as time goes on, it seems as though prospects for a ceasefire are diminishing. Why continue to press for it so publicly?
Well, because the Biden administration continues to believe that this diplomatic outreach could ultimately stave off a wider conflict. He's in Tel Aviv now. The question is, where's he going after this? The State Department won't say still where else he may be headed to try to continue these diplomatic conversations with his counterparts. Is it to Saudi Arabia? Is it to Egypt again? Is it to Qatar for some reason? Is it to some other area of the region? Because it's unclear who exactly can and would want to be speaking with the Biden administration right now to try to tamp this down. We know that the Secretary of State and other U.S. officials have been in touch with their counterparts across the region to try to at least contain or control how exactly Israel might respond, and then also dealing with Lebanese and Hezbollah officials up in Lebanon as to how any kind of response from the north could continue to play out. And then, of course, there's concerns about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. In recent days, the Biden administration has said that Israel has just a few days left to ensure that more humanitarian aid is getting into that region, or there's a risk that U.S. aid could be withheld from Israel.
And there's also a type of political component to this. Israel confirming that Prime Minister Netanyahu has spoken with former President Donald Trump, who, of course, is campaigning for office. Does that seem to undermine current efforts being made by the Biden administration?
It very well could if they're talking about some sort of deal where Netanyahu either does something or doesn't do something before the election that either of them might think could sway votes. Typically, you're supposed to hear from just one commander-in-chief, but that's not to say that former presidents don't continue their relationships with either current or former counterparts. It's typical that we've seen former presidents maintain relationships with other world leaders after they leave office. It's just that usually there's some kind of consultation about the fact that they were talking at all, just so everyone's aware. It doesn't appear that that's happening in this case. And we know that if these conversations are continuing, there's also the ones he's had, of course, that have been reported with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and likely with other world leaders either that are either sympathetic to him or want to see him win.
And current President Biden is set to attend an event alongside Senator Bernie Sanders today up in New Hampshire. What can you tell us about what we can expect from that?
This is an interesting victory lap that the two are taking. These are, again, former rivals and partners turned friends and partners who will be appearing in a key New England state, one that Democrats want to make sure stays blue. And so they've been sending surrogates, and in this case, the president and Sanders are indeed surrogates, to talk about two things. One, some of the successes of the Inflation Reduction Act, which the White House says may have saved as much as $1 billion for Medicare recipients just in the first half of this year alone because of the caps on prescription drug prices that are now in place. The other is to reinforce the importance of and the future of the Affordable Care Act. It's a typical campaign season tactic of Democrats to threaten voters with the potential future of their health care, as they claim Republicans might want to undo what is an otherwise popular system. But also notable to see Biden and Sanders campaigning together, not for either of them, but for Harris, who, of course, is their ally, but in the case of Sanders, someone who's quite far apart from him on matters especially of domestic policy.
Yeah, all interesting stuff. Ed, thanks for waking up with us this morning. Great to see you.
Take care.